Hi everyone, welcome to the Commissioner's Mid-Season Report. We've now reached the halfway point in the regular season, and so far it's shaping up to be a good one. I'm Tony Pugh, Commissioner of the CLYC Fantasy Football League, and I'm going to be breaking down all the major storylines so far this season. We have 3 guests joining us later in the show, but for now, let's start off by giving a brief update and recap of every single team in the league. We'll start off by going through the teams in the North Central Division. The biggest surprise has to be the dominating performance that Stafford infection has put on display so far this year. This team has definitely made the most of its number 1 draft position by drafting a team that has performed at a level that we have never seen in the history of this league. From day 1, this team has looked absolutely stellar. John looked to be unstoppable after week 4, going 4-0 and averaging 205 points per game, with 4 straight games over 190. But alas, all good things must come to an end, and we finally learned the answer to the age-old question, what happens when an immovable object meets an irresistible force? That immovable object was CLYC FFL Apples, who was 0-4 at the time and averaging only 142 points. And though the two teams ended up with 0.4 point differential in their matchup, John fell to Scott, and that started in motion the downward snowball effect that has become of John's team, which continues to tumble. For the 4th consecutive week, he has scored fewer points than the previous week, and in doing so, has put up 3 straight losses. Now, while that sounds like he must have hit rock bottom, let me assure you it's far from it. The reason he can fall so far is because he started so high up. His fall resulted in a Week 7 score of 157.2 points. That's higher than the league average right now. Okay, I look for this team to bounce back and be one of the favorites to win the championship. I give this team a mid-season grade of A+. Slow-mo TD bounce was the talk of the draft after implementing an irregular draft strategy. Taking 4 running backs with his first 4 picks seemed foolish at the time. Aaron took a lot of flack for it and a lot of criticism and got made fun of. But after the success he's seen over the first 7 weeks of the season, how can you argue with it? He has put up 5 games of 189 points or higher. And while he's not been without his share of running back injuries, his depth at the position has allowed him to make it through seemingly unscathed, while others who have suffered losses haven't been as fortunate. Other teams struggle to pick up table scraps to play as their starting running backs, and only wish that they had half the quality of backs that Aaron is enjoying. It's well known that those that have been desperate for running backs have attempted to trade for one of his. However, the lack of quality backs available in free agency has allowed Aaron to overcharge during trade negotiations. So if you want one of his backs, you're going to have to overpay. But with the success he's been experiencing lately, can you blame him? We all laughed at him on draft day, but who's laughing now? I give this team a mid-season grade of A+, and look for them to be one of the favorites to win the championship this year if they can avoid the boom or bust mantra that has plagued them over the last couple seasons. Up next to discuss is the New York Giants, who... Oh, no, sorry, not the Giants. We'll be discussing Dicks Out for Dow. Apologize for that. They're just so easily confusable considering Dow's team is basically made up of half Giants players. He has 5 of them on his roster. Dow is going through a sophomore slump in his 2nd year in the league. He started off the year by drafting 2 players that were suspended for multiple weeks. The same 2 players that carried his team to the playoffs last year, Tom Brady and Le'Veon Bell. However, this team's performance this year looks nothing like the team of last year, where he was the most consistent team in the league and put up solid numbers every single week. This year, his team has put up less than 140 points in 5 out of the 7 weeks. Despite his poor performance, though, he is 3-4 and within striking distance of the division lead, only 1 game back. However, overcoming a slow start could prove to be a bit of a challenge this week. 9 of the players on Dow's roster have a bye this week. Yes, 9 of them. So either he planned to have all of his players on bye in the same week, in what is likely Chess's sacrificial queen equivalent in fantasy football, or he just done fucked up. This week he plays Franca, so we'll see if he can pull off a major upset due to the number of players he has on bye. But averaging only 137 points per game, I have to give this team a mid-season grade of D. For Dow. Or Dix. After holding a midweek press conference in which they surprisingly fired head coach Howard McDix, the Herbville Whalers, led by team owner Eric Rivard and new head coach Bubba Quackenbush, immediately went to work by putting up a W for the first time since week 2 by scoring over 190 points, which was 63 points more than their average score so far this season. The former champs were filled with plenty of internal strife within the organization and the locker room, but made it abundantly clear that this week that they will not tolerate such behavior and look to restore the winning mentality that brought the inaugural championship to Herbville. Now, we aren't sure that this one game will be enough to turn around their season or to hush the ongoing whispers of relocation. Call it their reincarnation, call it beginner's luck, but at least the fan base can now celebrate with their new head coach and hope that the momentum can carry them over into the second half of the season. Despite their win this week, I still have to give them a mid-season grade of F based on their performance thus far. Here's to hoping that they can turn it around. Up next, we will be taking a look at the Dirty West Division, and 2 of our guest appearances will join us. Lucky Charms is currently ranked as the number 2 seed. The former champ is having a quietly successful season so far, not making a whole lot of noise, but he now commands the lead of the Dirty West over the Cheating Tonys. His team hasn't really had any booms or busts, but he has scored consistently in the 150 to 170 range. Tom hasn't been just quiet in his performance, but also on the group me chat and trash talking. Now, I don't know whether that's because he's married now or what, but Tom, let's get our priorities straight here. Dog, wife, CLYC Fantasy Football League. Now, these two can be flip-flopped, depending on whether it's that time of the month or the dog peed on the carpet. But CLYC Fantasy Football League, top of the board. Okay? Just kidding, Grace. Love you. But seriously, Tom, come back. We miss you. Anyways, mid-season grade for Lucky Charms, B. The Cheating Tonys continue to see the successes they've experienced over the last 2 years continue. However, getting to a record of 4-2-1 this year was not done with ease. Team owner Warren Black has made some gutsy player acquisition moves that have paid off big. His team at the start of the season had some quality players, but had no depth and no long-term plan for running backs. Both of his starting running backs were backups. And he lost his third-round wide receiver to injury in the first week. But he has rebounded. After week 1, he traded away a player who had scored 35 points for a more consistent wide receiver 1. He then orchestrated a trade in week 4, giving up that number 1 wide receiver for a running back who has since proven to be more valuable. Now, after 7 weeks through trades and free agency, he's managed to find 3 solid starting running backs, all while maintaining a decent wide receiver core. Warren has done a good job positioning his team for a second-half playoff push. He currently owns the wildcard slot, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this team take back the division lead in the near future and solidify their chances at a postseason slot. Now, I give the Cheating Tonys a mid-season grade of A- and project them to win the Dirty West Division. Now joining us live is Warren Black. Warren, how about you introduce yourself?
How's it going, guys? Captain Black of the Cheating Tonys, the GM, owner, and coach, and sometimes player if they need me.
Warren, you're fresh off your second loss of the season, and now you've surrendered the division lead to Tom. Why don't you talk about your game this past week?
I don't believe really should have lost that game to Dixell for Hambre. I think Hammond had a good team, but definitely shouldn't have stacked up to mine. I believe that we should have blown him out.
What do you feel led to that loss? Any surprises?
You know, with Drew Brees getting 31 points, Tavon Austin getting 22 points, and then, you know, Drew Brees getting 30 points is realistic, but I didn't really see that Tavon Austin was really going to go for 22 points because, you know, LA just is awful. Also, Michael Thomas, I didn't really expect him to blow up as much, and then especially the Eagles' defense with the 5 takeaways that they had, that scoring touchdown, only allowing 10 points for 36 points was kind of heartbreaking, because on the other side, you know, I was expecting Blake Bortles to kind of blow up, but, you know, I didn't. Should have just kept Tyrod Taylor in. Huge mistake. Got some great showings from LeGarrette Blount, Spencer Ware, but my wide receivers, you know, are not up to the par this year. I believe that, you know, if they put in a little more effort, I think that we would have won the game.
So this is your second loss now. Are those teams better than you guys? How do you respond to those losses?
I believe that the Cheating Tonys is way better than Hammond's team. I think that he just got lucky, just as, you know, just like Tom did in the beginning of the year when the team basically laid a big goose egg.
You mentioned that loss to Tom. Now, that was a division game, and you put up only 114 points to his 170. How would you describe that game?
It was the biggest embarrassment loss that I've ever had.
Well, since he's in your division, you'll have to play him again. Will we see a repeat result?
I just don't think that that's going to happen second time around when we play each other.
Well, talk about your opponent this week. Who do you play?
You got slow-mo TD bounce with Will Aarons. He has a great team, you know, don't get me wrong, but I really believe that I'm able to, you know, definitely beat him. His team doesn't really scare me as much as all the other teams in the league, or any, the only person that is really quite nerve-wracking is David Johnson, because he averages, 20-something points. He's averaging 29.4 points a game, so that's a huge blow if we can get him to calm down a little bit, you know.
I know you and Aaron have a bitter rivalry. How do you feel about going up against him this week?
I'm really excited for Will Aaron's team. I believe this will be a great test for our team. We got to get back on the W. We got to stay ahead in our division. I understand that we're second overall right now.
Do you think you can win your division this year? What do you think about the Dirty West?
My division is weak, soft. I don't see anyone in my division beating me again. I just honestly think that my team is the best team in the league, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it big.
Right now, 2 former champions occupy 2 of the division leads. You've never won a championship. How do you stack up against them?
Coming from last year where we came in 3rd place, but was 2 touchdowns away, 2 drop passes from John Brown from winning the league. You can see that Tony's a little scared. That I'm coming in hot. He got lucky with the tie that week. Tom's team's just not good. I don't believe that he'll ever come close to beating me.
Now, how do you, as the GM, respond to reports that your team does not have what it takes?
If it's time to prove ourselves, we've won the league 2 years in a row now, I believe, going for a 3rd time. The best winning percentage. I believe that I create the best teams. I believe that no one in this league is able to put together a team as good as mine. I believe that we just needed to come back start thinking about playoffs because it's coming faster than we know it. And, a couple more losses or ties isn't really going to do it for us. I believe that we will get it done. We will. This is our year this year. And for regards of the trading block, almost every single person in our league or on my team is up for trade. Just has to go for right price. I believe that DeAndre Hopkins is up for sale, essentially. But I'm not going to give him away for some bench player that you have or anything like that. I believe it has to be the right offer. I like to flirt with some offers before I actually make a done deal. I believe that there's some teams out there that could really use Hopkins, and there's also some teams that I could really use players on their team for Hopkins. You just got to stay tuned with that.
So how do you plan to turn this team around and make a run for the playoffs?
I need my team to wake back up. It was we've had a couple slow starts, and that's really put us in a crappy situation. I believe my 2 losses and a tie came to inferior opponents. I don't believe that they were better than me in any way. I think I have the best team in the league. My players just need to come out and ball out because that's the only way that we're going to win this league.
All right, great. Well, thanks for joining us, Warren. Any closing statements?
Captain Black and the Cheating Tonys are here, and we're winning this fucking league. Fuck you all. Let's go.
Wow, he doesn't hold back, does he? Well, Warren, thank you for joining us. Good luck the rest of the season. So what's to make of this team? After starting out relatively solid, Franca fell into his typical Franca slump. This seems to happen every year. Start out strong, fall into a slump, then desperately try to fight and claw his way back only to come up just short of making the playoffs. Well, maybe this year he turned things around a little earlier than normal. He put up a respectable point total this week and now has a winning record. Maybe the slump can be attributed to injuries since he lost his first and second round pick. Or maybe it can be attributed to poor drafting, like drafting Adrian Peterson 3rd overall. But this team has some bright spots and hope. For instance, team management finally cracked down on their financial disaster that they've been dealing with for over the last 2 years. After 2.5 years of hard work, they are now completely debt-free from the Bank of Tony. Now they can focus those efforts on scouting and player development to build the best roster over the upcoming weeks. After all, this team is only 1 game outside of the division lead and half a game back of the wild card. So I give this team a midseason grade of C. And now, joining us live from Portland is team owner and general manager Eric Franca. Hi Eric, thanks for joining us and welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So Franca, why don't you start out by talking about your game this past week?
Yeah, really, all I need to talk about is the fact that I beat the shit out of Whipper this week, which is great. 157 to 108. So, and I'm not even done. So I still got C.J. Anderson to put up some points. So that wasn't a big surprise because Whipper is 0-6 now 0-7. So that's tight. Next week I play Dow, which also probably won't be a big issue.
So we were at the halfway point in the season. How do you feel about being 4-3 so far?
I really like that I'm, now going to be 4-3 because it's a little bit better than being, doing really badly or doing really well because, it's a nice little middle of the pack. Allows me to sneak in there and take the trophy.
So how are things in Portland? Any personal updates about your life that you'd like to share?
It's raining. It's raining in Portland, which is typical, definitely. I'm moving. If anyone didn't know, at the end of December, beginning of January. I don't know where to. Could be someplace near one of you guys, but we'll see.
Wow, crazy to hear that you're moving. Hopefully you're moving back to Michigan, man. Well, any closing statements for the rest of the guys in the league?
I'm just excited to basically just kick your asses and make sure that I win this year. So have a good one.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Franca. It was a pleasure having you on, and good luck the rest of the season. Building a winning team is not an easy thing to do. After coming off of last year's blue ball performance, Scott seems to have possibly found something that is finally trending in the right direction. Last year, he scored less than 135 points in 9 out of the 14 regular season games. This year, he has 0. He has also already tied the number of games over 150, and the arrow is only pointing up. After averaging 142 points over the first 4 weeks of the season, he has since posted an average of 169 points over the last 3 games, which is the 3rd highest average in the league over that span. Now, I know his team is 2-5, but they could easily be 3-4 if the Earthville Whalers hadn't fired their head coach and posted the best game of the season. While it may be hard to make the playoffs, it definitely isn't out of the question, sitting only 2.5 games back from the wild card. I can see this team making a push for a final record of 7-7, and if things continue to trend the way they have been, I wouldn't put it past this team. I give this team a mid-season grade of C+. Finally, we move over to the Beastern Eastern Division. Positioned as the current number 1 seed for the time being is defending champion Suck My Ditka. Tony is 5-1-1 and ranked 4th overall in most points scored so far this season. He sits first in the Beastern Eastern Division, 1.5 games ahead of second place, Dick's out for Hambray. Tony's team has been relatively consistent, scoring in the 150 to 170 points range, except for 1 boom week and 1 bust week. Suck My Ditka set a league record by going undefeated for the first 6 weeks of the season before being handed their first loss last week to Slow-Mo TD Bounce. This marks the 3rd matchup ever between Tony and Aaron, and it's the 3rd time that Aaron has beaten Tony. Now, there are only 2 people in the league that Tony has failed to get a win over. One is Aaron, and the other is Tom, who Tony will face this week in their matchup. Now, Tony is 0-3 all-time against Tom. So will he be able to finally overcome his losing streak? Or will he lose to him again, like he did with Aaron, and get his 2nd straight loss of the season? Now, on paper, Tony has a pretty strong team, but the team has not found a way to fire on all cylinders, sputtering with lineup questions every week. Between record and points, I give Suck My Ditka a mid-season grade of B+. And now, joining us live is team owner and general manager of Suck My Ditka, defending champion Tony Pugh. Tony, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Oh shit, we're starting? Oh. Hey, Mr. Commissioner. Thanks for having me on with you. Now, Tony, coming off your championship last year, you are yet again the number 1 seed in the league so far. So how do you respond to the critics who say you're cheating? They can suck my d***. What, you're gonna bleep that? I didn't even say d***. I said d***. It's my team name, for crying out loud. Okay. So we're halfway through the season so far. Who do you consider to be your biggest competitor? Well, Jack's pretty big. This week, a report surfaced that you are currently in trade discussions with other teams. The scoop was provided to us by an anonymous source. Is there any truth to it? Was it Aaron? I bet it was Aaron. It was Aaron, right? Look, I love trading. I think it's one of the most fun parts of the entire game. I'm happy to say I have a great trading relationship and history with a lot of people in this league. People know that if they want to trade, they can come talk to me about it. But Aaron, I'm not interested in Carlos Hyde, and I'm not interested in an injured Doug Martin, and I'm not interested in an injured Latavius Murray. And I'm certainly not going to give you Julio Jones for any of them. Well, speaking of Aaron, he's one of the two teams you've never beaten, and you lost to him last week. This week, you play Tom, who you're 0-3 against all time. So do you think you'll be able to beat him this week and check him off the list? I actually think it could be a very close game. Neither of our teams have been flashy, but both of us have been solidly consistent. But this week, I have a secret weapon. I recently acquired a rookie through free agency who I think has a lot of promise. And this kid was recently signed by another team and then kicked to the curb within an hour of signing with them. So I intend to fire him up straight away. I think he's going to put up great numbers. And this kid's going to be a stud. So shout out to Hammond for dropping him, and thanks, bud. All right, well, thank you for joining us, Tony. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Good luck the rest of the season. All right, thank you, Mr. Commissioner. I appreciate you having me on. Look forward to keeping this baby for another year. Dicks Out for Hambre made huge waves in Week 2 by securing the trade of the season by acquiring Gurley for a player who sucked so bad he was cut by his team, and another player who is indefinitely suspended by the NFL. He started things out with a bang, but things have been quiet lately for Dicks Out for Hambre. We really haven't heard from him. Now, I'm not sure if that's due to the mediocre performance or the fact that he quit the group me chat. But either way, we all heard from him this week when he posted a score over 190 points. His win over the previously ranked number 2 team helped him to close the gap on his division lead from 2.5 games back to 1.5 games back. And now he's only within half a game of the wild card slot. Now, his roster has been very fluid this season. Chris has been very active on the waiver wire and in free agency. He's made the most add-drop transactions out of anyone in the league so far this season. He has his work cut out for him over the rest of the season, however, as 5 out of the remaining 7 teams that he has to play have a winning record. So look for this team to struggle if he can't put up solid numbers on a more consistent basis. I give this team a midseason grade of C+. Having a very quiet and under-the-radar season so far this year is Des Nuts No Romo, who is currently in a 4-way tie for 4th place overall in the league. Jack is tied for 2nd in the Eastern Division, 1.5 games back from the division lead and half a game out of the wild card. Jack's team has put up mildly mediocre numbers that were starting to trail off in recent weeks, until last week when his team put up a team high of 193.7 points. Now, no one player on his team went off. It was that every player on his roster had a solid performance, which is good news for
these nuts,
because having a team do well because one player goes off is far less promising than having a team do well because everyone on your team has an okay week. Next up for
these nuts
is a relatively soft schedule. In the next 4 weeks, he is slated to play teams with a combined record of 12-16. That's an average record of 3-4. So things could quickly ratchet up for this team if they perform at a higher level. I give
these nuts
a mid-season grade of C-.
got him. Got him.
Right now in last place, with an abysmal 0-7 record, is the CLYC fantasy football equivalent of the Cleveland Browns, which is fitting for 2 reasons. 1, the whole Ohio thing, and 2, the Browns don't have a logo, and Whipper doesn't have a team name. Now, I'm not a doctor or a psychiatrist, but my guess is they have an identity crisis. The players are lacking some sort of identity to bring them together as a unit, something to give them hope, something to fight for and rally behind. So I think owners may want to take note for the future. There seems to be a correlation between naming your team and performance. And sitting at 0-7 with the fewest points scored on the season and no indication of things turning around, I have to give Team Whipper a midseason grade of F and name them the favorites to win the Blue Balls Award this year. Well, without a doubt, it has to be John, with Aaron not too far behind. I would say that Tony and Warren will win their respective divisions and make the playoffs. How's you like them apples? That team has a real dark horse feel to it. They might surprise everyone. How can you say it's not the Herbville Whalers? I mean, that team has just not been the typical team that we see from Reeves. Well, now it's week 8, and we haven't seen any trades since week 2. We were on a record pace for the most trades in a season, but then suddenly things stalled out. But what hasn't stalled out is the fines. Currently, we're up to 25 fines so far, thanks to Tom, Scott, Franca, and Rivard. So, set your lineup, boys. For the first time this season, we have a new team atop the power rankings. Slow-Mo TD Bounce has ousted Stafford Infection and claimed the top spot. Meanwhile, the Herbville Whalers have finally climbed out of the basement for the first time this season, moving up 2 spots to 10th, dropping Dicks Out for Dow and Team Whipper to the bottom 2 spots. Of note, slowly and steadily on the rise is Hauschka Like Them Apples, who has now climbed to 4th in the power rankings. That concludes this edition of the Commissioner's Midseason Report. I'm your Commissioner, and on behalf of myself and the rest of the Crystal Lake Yacht Club Fantasy Football League, I want to thank you for joining us, and good luck the rest of the season.